Novel Universe with Ashley and Dawn, book club buddies who love to read YA fiction. We'll discuss the good, the bad, the ugly, and oh my gosh, we need to talk about this right now. I'm Ashley, the fantasy architect.
And I'm Dawn, the criticizer of books.
So grab something sweet or salty and join our universe.
Hello and welcome back to the Novel Universe with your host, Dawn, the criticizer of books. It is just me today because I wanted to do a separate podcast about As the Shadow Rises by Katy Rose Pool. It is book 2 in the There Will Come a Darkness series. Ashley has not read this series, and I wanted to do an extensive podcast, if you will, because this book is quite dense. So, FYI, this does come out September 1st, and as I said, this is book 2 in There Will Come a Darkness series. It is a very good series. It is by Katy Rose Pool. If you have not read it, you should read it immediately. I want to apologize up front for any noises that you might hear in the background. We have fireworks going off. My neighbors are loud as hell, so that might happen. It is Memorial Day. Happy Memorial Day. And let's get into this review. I'm going to do a spoiler free and then I will go into spoilers. I am going to give a couple of disclaimers. First, I would like to say that this is not like Six of Crows. This book is being described for fans if you like Six of Crows. I'm seeing this all over Goodreads, and then people who are reviewing it on Goodreads are like, this isn't like Six of Crows at all, and they're really upset about it. No, it is not like Six of Crows, so please don't think that it is. That is the publisher's way of just trying to get people to read the book. The only way it's like Six of Crows is that there's 5 different POVs. That is the only similarity. Secondly, I really want to stress this really, really badly, is that this is not a fluffy series. This book is a critical book. It has received a Morris nominee, which is for a debut award given to a debut author, and that award usually doesn't go to fantasy, or nominations, they don't go to fantasy books. So because it is like an award nominated book, it is a critical read, which means there's going to be a lot of plot and a lot of discussion and critique and just a lot going on in this book. It's not a fun, fluffy read. So if you're going into the series thinking that what you're going to miss a lot of what's going on. You could probably read this book on the surface. I think Katy Rose has made it so that if you read this book on the surface, you'll probably get some relationship stuff in there and some romance and a little bit of politics and some action. But if you're only reading at surface level, you're really missing out on the social commentary and all the really good politics and the world building that's going on here. So if you decide to read the series, which you should, you're going to have to take notes. Like, I read the first book twice, and I still missed something in the first book. And in this book, I took hella notes, and I still had to go back for another couple of hours because I missed a lot of stuff. So hopefully I'm not turning you off. But if you like a really good critical book, if you're looking for a book club book or a buddy read book or something, and you really want like a critical fantasy, then this is the series for you. Okay. So, I'm assuming that if you are listening to this, you have already read book 1. Even the spoiler-free section is going to have spoilers in it because I'm going to sum up what happens at the end of book 1. So if you have not read this yet, book 1, I would suggest you turn off now because I'm even though it's a spoiler-free edition, I'm still about to spoil it for you. So turn off now because here I go. All right, so this is the spoiler-free edition. I'm going to start with my dislikes, and then I'll go into my likes, and just like normal. First, I'm gonna give my, well, let's do the plot synopsis. Okay, so at the end of book 1, all of our main characters are off on their own mission. So Ephyra is off to find the Chalice. Hassan and Khepri are off to take down the Hierophant and take back Nazira, the capital city of Herat. Anton and Jude has lost his grace, and Anton was kind of suicidal, and he feels kind of bad because he may have been the reason why Jude has lost his grace. He's also lost his blade. Ephyra has... Sorry, I forgot to turn off my phone. Ephyra and Beru has basically told Ephyra that she doesn't want her to kill people for her anymore, and they need to separate and be on their own now. And so Beru is off by herself to kind of redeem Hector's life. He has been killed by Ephyra, and so she is going to live her final days trying to not die in vain and like memorialize Hector in some sort of way. So book 2 picks up with everybody off on their own mission. All right, so originally I gave this book a 4.25 because, and I'll get into that in my dislikes, but after I went back through and really figured out all the stuff that I missed, I bumped it up to a 4.5. I believe I gave the first book a 4.5. So far, this is the highest rated book I have given this year. It is the end of May, and I've not given anything over a 4.25. So far, this is the highest rated book I have given this year. Yay, finally something good. Okay, so let's get into dislikes. There's only a couple, obviously, because I gave this book a pretty high rating. But my first major dislike of the book is that it is kind of confusing. And I took a lot of notes. Like, my Kindle is chock full of fun notes that I took, but it still wasn't enough because I was still missing a lot. You really do have to pay attention because there's a lot going on there's a new mission that they have to go on, and then there's the prophets and then the prophecy, and then all the harbingers have their own thing going on, and then there's all these other minor major characters like the Sacrifice Queen and the Necromancer King and King Vasily, like all that stuff, and it all comes together. But because there's so much going on in all different parts of the book, it gets a little confusing. So I'll get into all that in the spoiler edition, but yeah, it was a little confusing for me on the first time reading it through. The second thing that I didn't like was I found the Esha a little confusing, particularly Ephyra's. Her name is not Ephyra. Oh my God. Ephyra, I found her Esha confusing. It seemed to not have a lot of rules. I don't know. It was just she controlled the chalice and then she didn't, and then her Esha went in this person and this happened, and I just got really confused. Sometimes when I'm really confused like that, I'll just think that the book will just suss it out for me, but it never really did. So I consider that minor though. It's not like a major part of the book or anything. And my last dislike was this book has one of my deal breakers that I don't like when I read a book, and that's the sudden epiphanies. And what I mean by that is when a character kind of at one moment just automatically figures something out to solve their problem. And just to give you an example from the book, so one way to avoid it is to have other people around the character to kind of help them through. Hopefully I don't lose my voice. I sound like I'm starting to lose my voice a little bit. I apologize. But at one point in the book, when Ephyra is trying to find the chalice, she has other people with her. And one of the characters with her is a historian. And so when Ephyra is reading something and she doesn't know what a location is or a word is or a symbol is, her historian with her knows exactly what it is because they're a historian. They know what they're talking about. But when Ephyra's on her own and she's just trying to something happens and she doesn't know why, and then a page later she's like, oh, I know. And then Jude will go, oh, I know. And then Anton will go, oh, I know. It's oh, I call that the sudden epiphanies. I kind of don't like that, especially when they're on their own. If another person is with them and they can kind of talk it through or whatever, that makes it a little different. But there were several instances of the sudden epiphanies, so it bothered me enough for me to affect the rating. Those are all my dislikes. So let's get into the likes. The biggest like I have with this book is the dialogue and the relationships, be them familial or romantic or friendship, they were all quite mature for a YA novel. And by mature, I mean it wasn't a lot of teen drama-rama. The discussions these teens were having and the conversations that they were having, which conversation, discussion, same thing, but how they handled it was all very mature. And I appreciated that because that tends to be kind of tropey. These are the fireworks going off right now. I live by the park district that does all the fireworks. So that tends to be kind of tropey in YA when you have teens go through these very, well, not very teen, but they go through these issues, but then the way they solve it is like they make really bad decisions, and then eventually they grow because someone calls them out on their crap, but it's after they made all these decisions and they're all really angsty and angry, and it's just like it gets old after a while. And yes, they're teens. They're going to have teen drama-rama. I understand that. But in a book like this, these teens are tasked with ending the end of the world, like solving the end of the world crisis. That is not a teen issue to have. That's a very mature issue. And so they should handle it maturely. It's not like, oh, my math teacher hates me. It's not that kind of drama. They have to stop the world from ending. That's a huge responsibility that they have to take on. So I feel like the way they handle it needs to be much more mature than teen drama-rama. And just to give you an example of one of the issues that's going on where it was done maturely and well was Ephyra. Ephyra, on the surface, it looked like insta-love. I'm not going to say I'll go into it in the spoiler edition, but her situation looked like insta-love, but actually it wasn't. It was her making bad decisions, but the theme surrounding her is facing her demons. And instead of her facing her demons, she was leaning into them, which was causing her to make horrible decisions. And so she was having some really serious conversations with the person that she was insta-loving with, and the reader, and herself. And another example, a good example, is Jude. Jude is dealing with his faith, just like he was in the first book. And this is a real life situation that many teens have. There are some teens who have taken a vow of chastity. Chastity? No, chastity. And then they find themselves being confronted with that and maybe falling for another person. And then they are questioning their faith. That is not a teen issue. That is an issue that adults face as well. And some teens don't handle it correctly, just like some adults don't. They make bad decisions, what I mean to say, just like some adults make bad decisions. But there are some teens who really take their faith seriously, or they take, even if it's not faith-based, maybe they're just like, I'm just going to save myself until I go to college or whatever. And they take that very seriously. I'll just use the faith as an example because it's Jude's example. And they read their Bible, they ask their clergy, they talk to their friends, they do some self-reflection. Like, they have mature emotions and feelings and thoughts. And I think that a lot of authors do teens a disservice when they make their teens make these tropey, stupid decisions. It's like, we can have mature conversations and mature ideas and concepts. It doesn't always have to be teen drama-rama. So I appreciated that Katy Rose did that. I think all the characters were very well done. Trying to think here. There are a couple of new characters. Arash is one of them. Arash. I can't remember I don't know how to say his name. I'm just going to call him Arash. He is with Hassan. He's a very interesting character. I thought he was very well. He was a minor, but he was very well done. Even Hassan, Hassan is one character that Elise and I, we didn't really love him too much. Elise and I did a very thorough chapter by chapter discussion on the first book. If you want to go back to the archives and find that podcast, you can. It's like 5 different podcasts. So yeah, I even liked Hassan a lot more in this book, but all of the characters are really going through some interesting things, and the way she has written them, it's quite well done. So I'll go into each character and what their issues are in the spoiler section, but I'm not going to do that now. But the characters are done very well. Her world is fantastic. I can tell that she has outlined her book all the way through the series, because things that happened in book 2 were foreshadowed in book 1. And I'm pretty sure things that happened in book 3 are going to be foreshadowed in this book. So I can tell she's really thought out her world. She has a lot of themes going on here, which once again makes the book critical. She doesn't write tropes. She writes against trope, which makes her book not predictable. Thank you. I hate a tropey book. I'm pretty sure we all hate a tropey book. Some tropes we do like. Sometimes we like the hate to love trope, or the angsty girl. I don't know. You know all the tropes. I'm not going to list them. But Katy Rose writes against trope. And even from the first couple chapters, you're like, oh, whoa. You know, here we go. We're off to the races here. So I really do like her writing style. I like the way she tells the story. She, like I said, you can totally tell she has really thought out her story, and it's done really well. So those are my likes. I'm going to end the spoiler-free edition now, because the spoiler edition is going to be quite long, because there's a lot going on in this book. Join us, myself and Ashley. Ashley will be back Friday. We are going to be discussing The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Snakes and Songbirds? Songbirds and Snakes? One of those. By Suzanne Collins. That will be Friday, possibly Saturday. We record live on Friday, so if you want to join us on Podbean, just download the app and you can find us at The Novel Universe. Otherwise, thank you for joining us. If you're going to stay for the spoiler edition, it is starting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so the spoiler edition it's for you, of course, but it is also for me, because I know that by the time book 3 comes out, I will have probably forgotten everything, because this book is quite dense. So, hi Dawn, I'm from the past, and you're the future. Hopefully we still have a future. It is during the pandemic right now, so let's hope a year from now that we're still here. And now my neighbors are home and they're loud as hell. Yay. All right. So let's get into this story. And this is, as I explain all of this, you're going to see how confusing it is for me. And hopefully I helped you out, that you don't have to deal with all the confusion. But basically the plot of book 2 is that Anton needs to figure out how to stop the Age of Darkness. He needs to learn how to figure out how to stop Armageddon, basically. And, all right, so let's start with the relics. I don't think the relics are mentioned in book 1. There are 4 relics. These are the most important thing of this book. There are 4 relics. There's the Crown of Herat, the Pinnacle Blade. I almost said the Sword of Gryffindor. Lord have mercy. The Pinnacle Blade, the Oracle Stone, and the Chalice. Elazar, I don't know how to say his name. Chalice. It's the Chalice. We have heard the Chalice before. These are the 4 relics, and they have a dual issue here. So, okay, I'm just going to go into the prophets, because I'm going to get into some terminology and you're going to be like, what? Okay, so let's get into the prophets. Now that you know what the relics are, let's get into the prophets. All right, so at the beginning of time, there was a God. He's just called God, just like our God. Well, our God has a name. But anyway, there's a God. And God was too powerful to be able to communicate with the mortals. And so he had 7 prophets to do that for him. And the prophets are all listed in book 1. I don't know if they're listed in book 2, not like as part of the big storytelling. Because I think in book 1, someone's walking through town and they observe the pillars of the prophets, and then they say, this is Bethesda, this is Palace, whatever. So the 7 prophets decided that, you know what? We don't need God. Let's kill him and take all the power for ourselves. And that's what they did. They killed God, and they broke up his Esha into 4 different relics. They broke his body up into 4 different pieces. So the first piece was his head or his mind, and they put that in the relic, the Crown of Herat. The Crown of Herat was given, that relic was given to the first king of Herat by Prophet Nazira. If you recall, the capital city is Nazira, named after the prophet. The second body part that was broken up was the heart, and the heart was put into the pinnacle blade. The prophet Palace gave the pinnacle blade to the order, and the order gives it to the keeper of the word, which is passed down to each keeper of the word, and now Jude has it because he is the current keeper of the word. So Jude also has the grace of heart. And let me go back to Hassan for a second. Hassan is not graced, but Hassan is very smart. He reads a lot. He's quite intelligent. He's a thinker. He's a strategist, kinda, when he doesn't make lousy decisions. And so the crown is the God's mind. So he's smart. He doesn't have a grace, but he's smart. All right. So the third one is God's sight. So they killed God, took his sight, and put it in the oracle stone. We do not know the prophet. Well, we do, but I'll get to that at the end. I'll get to that in a second. A prophet gave somebody, we don't know who the person was the prophet gave it to, the oracle stone. However, it has been passed down to Anton. Anton has the grace of sight. His ancestor, King Vasily, also had the grace of sight. I'll get to him in a second. And he has the grace of sight, and the relic was passed down to him. And finally, the chalice. The chalice, God's blood was put into the chalice, the last relic. Blood was given to the sacrificed queen from Prophet Bethesda. I'll get to the sacrificed queen in a second. She's important. But anyway, the grace of blood is a healing grace. It has been passed down to Ephyra. I'll also get to that, how she got it in a second. But Ephyra, she has the power to heal, but she doesn't know how. All she knows how to do is kill. Okay, so those are the relics. And that's how they're all connected to these teens. And these are why these teens are in this story, because they are connected to their relic. All right. So the prophets disappeared. We learned that from book 1. They disappeared one day. Not quite sure why. I'm going to guess that, like I said, we know which prophet gave the stone, but we don't know who he gave it to. We do know that King Vasily had it. And in book 1, if you recall, there was a prophecy and King Vasily failed to fulfill his prophecy. The third, he fulfilled the first 2 parts of it, but the third part was that he was to be last in his line, but he's not, because Anton is here. Anton is his descendant. So I think what happened is that, I don't know, somewhere along the line, the prophecy wasn't going to come true, and Vasily saw into the past. That's not supposed to happen. I think he can only see into the future, like Anton can see into the future. All the prophets can see into the future. And he saw what happened with God, and the prophets killed God. And I don't know if he was trying to tell somebody and people didn't believe him, but he died a crazy person and he drowned himself. So I think that maybe the prophets were like, uh-oh, somebody knows our secrets. he's not the last of his line. If he was the last of his line, whatever, we could just go on doing whatever we want. But he has an heir. It is Anton. So we're going to disappear until the new prophet is found, Anton. And when Anton rises, we're going to kill him. I think that is why they disappeared. I think. I'm not quite sure. Okay. So that is pretty much the story of, I think I got all that right, of the prophets. Let's talk about the Nameless Woman. The Nameless Woman was, in the first book, she was helping Anton try to scry. And then at the very end of book 1, she told Ephyra, you need to find the chalice. The Nameless Woman ends up being very important. So, okay. Oh my God, I gotta go back to the relics for a second. All right. So the prophets bound the god in this red gate, and the red gate is breaking and it's seeping out Esha, and too much Esha causes destruction and war, which is kind of what's happening right now with the Hierophant, however you want to say it. And they need to bring the relics together to repair the gate. However, they can also bring God back if they bring the relics together. And that was where I was getting confused. But I figured it out. So then that's what they have to do. As I said before, they have to bring the relics together to repair the gate. And that's what happens at the end of the book. I'll get to that in a second. Back to the Nameless Woman. So the Nameless Woman is also the protector of the relics. So something happened. They saw that the relics were causing a lot of havoc, and they took the relics. The Lost Rose Society, I don't think it's called society, but it's this group called the Lost Rose. They took the relics and they hid them away because it's too powerful for people to have it. And the Nameless Woman is the leader of the Lost Rose, and her job is to keep the relics hidden and not getting into the wrong hands, aka the Hierophant. And that's why she's telling Ephyra, you need to go find it. And she's trying to help Anton scry so that he can go find his. And she found the blade when Jude lost it, and she's giving it back to him and all of that. Turns out, though, that the Nameless Woman is also a prophet, and she's the prophet that doesn't have a face. She's the only one that doesn't have a face, and she's called the Wanderer. But we still don't know who she gave the stone to. It's never really said who she gave it to. It just said that she had it and she gave it to somebody. And I'll get to her in a second and how she plays into the ending of the book. All right, so let's go to the Chalice and why that's important. If you are confused, if this is a lot of information, not confused, but if this is a lot of information, this is what I spent like 3 hours trying to figure out, because I missed all of that. I missed all of it. I don't know how, and I was taking notes, but I missed all of it. Anyway, the Chalice was given to the sacrificed queen by Prophet Bethesda. And there was a plague going on in the town Bethesda, and the sacrificed queen sacrificed herself to save the town, and her blood basically gave children and people the grace of blood. And eventually they became healers, and they healed each other, and that's what stopped the plague. But Prophet Bethesda had another prophecy. She got another prophecy that foretold that one of these kids who had the grace of blood was going to cause war and destruction. And so she took the chalice, and she gave it to the Daughters of Mercy and was like, protect it so that this doesn't happen. Meanwhile, the Daughters of Mercy were like, okay, we're going to pay attention, and we're going to watch all these kids who are graced, and we're going to take these kids and we're going to train them so we can thwart this prophecy. A boy comes through. He's too powerful. They're like, we don't like you. Get your ass to the desert and die. He doesn't die. He grows and gets angry, and he rises up, goes to Daughters of Mercy, steals the chalice. He starts killing people, taking all their Esha. He's getting more powerful, and he builds an army. That's the Necromancer King. He was mentioned in the first book. He gets his army, but he is defeated, and they banish him again to the desert. They don't kill him for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe it's because they're merciful. I don't know. So he's been off into the desert for 400 years, and he's pissed. So Ephyra's parents, her mom is pregnant with her, but she's having a very difficult birth. She is going to die in childbirth, or the baby's going to die. And so the father's desperate. He's like, I need a healer. They find the necromancer king, who's like, oh, I'm a good Samaritan. I'll help you. And he saves Ephyra, but he puts his Esha into her. And when she grows up, she can't control it, and she kills everybody. And the father's like, oh my God, what did you do? I need you to fix it. And he's like, I will fix it, but you need to go and get that chalice for me. But he didn't get to it because Ephyra accidentally killed them. So that is why Ephyra is connected to the chalice, because it is the grace of blood. And she's connected to the necromancer king. Okay, so now let's get to the Hierophant. The Hierophant, I couldn't figure out what his motives were, but I did figure it out in the end. So he is actually Prophet Pallas. And Pallas, as I said earlier, is the prophet who gave the pinnacle blade to the order, and the order passes it down to the king, to the keeper of the word. The Hierophant still wants power. What he wants, I believe his motive is to bring the god back, because he's trying to find all of the relics. He wants to get to the Red Gate, put the relics together, bring the god back, contain him, and have God do his bidding. And he basically achieved that by the end of the book. And I'll get to that in a second. I keep saying that. So that is the whole motive of the Hierophant. And that's also one of the themes in this book, is power, and how having too much power is bad. And at one point, Ilya, who makes a interesting return, he says to Ephyra, the powerful get to make the rules and the weak have to follow. And I feel like there's a lot of people in this book who have too much power, and they are reckless with it. So the Hierophant is one of them. Arash is one of them. He wants the crown because I didn't really get to talk about him too much, but I'll get to him when I talk about Hassan. But Arash wants power. The aunt Lethia, she wants power, and she's not going to do good things with it. The prophets, obviously, they wanted power. They didn't do good things with it. So power is a really big theme in this book, and power is bad, essentially. I think that is the overall, the overall folklore of this book, or the world building, what has to do with the relics, and the whole plot is to not get the relics, and all that stuff. So now let's talk about the characters and how they are quite interesting. As I said in my spoiler-free edition, how the characters are really good. And let's start with Jude, because I think Jude is one of my favorite characters. I like Jude a lot. One reason is because he has a very interesting voice. He's got a voice that I've not heard in YA before, which makes him great, because anytime an author can write a new voice in fiction is a good thing. It makes their book special. And Jude is still struggling with his faith. The whole thing with Hector, and how he is the keeper of the word. He is supposed to not have feelings of sex, basically, or romance, because the keeper of the word binds himself to a higher being, to the order, and his only job is to protect the prophet. And he's not supposed to have any kind of feelings about anybody, but he's not feeling worthy because he does. So he's questioning himself and his faith and everything. And in book 2, he starts to have romantic feelings for Anton. And I know because at first I was thinking this too. I was like, didn't he love Hector? How could he just drop Hector like a piece of crap and fall for Anton? But I think what happened in book 1 is when Hector and Jude were fighting on top of that building, Hector says to Jude, you want more from me than what I can give you, or something like that. Like, I can't give you what you need me to give you. And Jude can tell when people are lying to him, and he could tell that Hector wasn't lying to him. And I think at that moment he had to let Hector go. He still loves Hector. He still cares for Hector. He still wants to know what happens to him, but I don't think he loves him anymore because Hector, it's unrequited. Hector doesn't love him back. So now he's with Jude, and he's formed this bond with Jude, and he's also starting to fall in love with, Anton. He's starting to fall in love with Anton. And there were 2 pretty big moments in Jude's chapters, and one of them is at the very beginning of the book where Anton is about to run away, and he says to Jude, why do you keep putting your faith in something that keeps disappointing you? And he could be talking about 2 different things. He could be talking about the order, because the order at this point, the order is about to exile him. Because even though he did his job, he found the prophet, he brought the prophet back, he protected the prophet, he lost his duty. He broke an oath, which was he fell in for Hector. He left Hassan at one point to go find Hector, and Penrose was like, oh, you broke your oath, dude. Sorry, gotta tell the order. And they're about to kick him out. So he's losing faith in the order because they don't have any faith in him. Or is Anton talking about Anton? Because Anton has disappointed Jude a couple times. He tried to kill himself at the end of book 1, and Jude had to go save him and made him lose his grace. And at the beginning of the book, Anton is running away, and he's like, just come with me. And I'm about to go. Just go. Anton he's vulnerable. He's scared. He runs. And so is it Anton that keeps disappointing him? We don't know. But what we do know is that at some point, Jude needs to make a decision. He's lost his grace of heart. He can't wield his grace anymore, and so he can't use his sword anymore. He can't use it. He can't even unsheath it. And because his blade is the grace of heart, his heart is conflicted. He doesn't know where his heart lies, and that's why he can't wield his blade. So until he figures out who he needs to have faith in, which I think ultimately he decides to have faith in himself, then he can wield the blade. Another big moment in Jude's chapters and his character development is towards the end of the book. He's on the boat. I don't think he has the stone yet. I think they're on the way to get the stone. And he's kind of coming to terms with the fact that he's in love with Anton, and he's just about to say, screw the order, I'm just going to go with my heart. And Penrose comes to him, and she's like, you can't do that. You can't leave the order. We chose this life. And he's like, I didn't choose this life. You did. I was born into it. I was basically told this is my destiny, and I don't have a choice. And I think at that moment, he's like, I need to start choosing for myself, and I choose the boy I love. So all of that is great because that is called critical writing. We just had a little discussion about Jude and choice and faith, and that's how you write a critical book. That's what I mean when I say that this book is not fluffy, because Jude's character all by himself is a really good discussion. Let's talk about Ephyra, because Ephyra is also another complex character. So Ephyra, she's trying to find the chalice. She's also, she's stuck with Ilya again. And we all know Ilya is a dirty, filthy liar, and he's a manipulator and a user, and he's selfish, and he's just using people to get what he wants. Ephyra knows this. She's trying to tell the people she's with, don't trust him. They're like, oh, he's so charming, he's so nice. And he's like, guys, don't do it. But they're not listening to her. And as the reader, you know, she fell for it before. And as the reader, you're like, oh, geez. Oh, please, Katy Rose, please don't let this girl fall for this guy. Because at one point she's like, oh, his eyes are so blue. His hair is so dark. He's so attractive. And you're like, oh, Lord, please don't let her fall for this boy. And when she gets to the Daughters of Mercy, they're like, oh, sorry, homegirl. We kicked your sister to the curb to die out in the desert. And she's basically like, she's dead. And so she has nothing to live for. She was the only thing she had in her life that was good was her sister. And now she's gone, so she thinks. And she becomes reckless. And one of the first things she does is start to bang Ilya. And people can see that as a trope. Oh my God, she fell for the guy. Well, no, I don't see it that way. Because, as I said earlier, she needs to face her demons. And she's not doing that. She's leaning into it. She's just like, well, you know what? Beru tried to make me be a better person, telling me, you know, you can't kill anybody anymore. I tried really hard, but I can't. I have nothing left in my life. This is the only thing I know. This is the only thing I can do. And I'm going to go back to killing people. And I'm also going to bang this hot guy that's next to me. And these are the bad decisions that she's making because she's not facing her demons. Ephyra is an interesting character for that reason. She basically says that Beru was the only light in her life. She was the only good thing in her life. And why should she try to be a good person when she's not? She doesn't think she's a good person. She doesn't think she's worthy of anything. And at the very end, Beru is basically, I'll get to the end, but she basically has to go with Beru. And because the Hierophant is like, if you want me to not kill your sister Beru, you're going to do my bidding. And so Ephyra goes with her. And Ilya also goes. And you're like, oh God, here this guy goes again. Because he's such a snake. He's such a dirty liar. And he's like, oh, Hierophant, take me with you. And he's like, I don't trust you. You're a dirty liar. And he's like, no. I'm useful. And the Hierophant is like, okay, but he's really not there for the Hierophant. He's in love with Ilya, or he's in love with, oh good Lord, I can't, so many names. He's in love with Ephyra because I think they're a kindred spirit. They're both kind of these damaged people who have kind of latched on to their sibling in some really twisted way. And they have these awful demons and they can't seem to just like, they don't think each other are, they like, Ilya doesn't think he's a good person. Ephyra doesn't think she's a good person. They see the good in each other, but they can't see the good in themselves. And so I think that Ephyra and Ilya are going to be this awesome couple that is just going to help bring down the Hierophant, and I'm all for it. Like, I love them together now. I like Ilya now. He was horrible before, but I really like him now. Beru and Hector. Hector is back. He was resurrected by the Necromancer King. I must have missed how they crossed paths. I don't know how he resurrected him, but he did. And so now Beru and Hector are connected, and they start to have a fall in love a little bit. But Beru says that he doesn't actually love her. They're disconnected, and he thinks he loves her. So I wouldn't necessarily I think eventually they are, but it will be Hector really is in love with her and not because of some connection that they have. And finally, Hassan and Khepri. If you notice, I have not mentioned Khepri because Khepri sucks. So in Hassan's chapter, they're in the capital city. They're going to try and do something, but something happens. They save a little graced family, and they end up running to the libraries where the rebels are hiding out. And turns out Khepri's brothers are there too, and she didn't know that. She hasn't seen him for a while. And also there's another guy named Arash, and he is the leader of the rebels. And Arash he's a really good character. I'm really bummed that he died. So Hassan says, I don't think we saw him die, but I think he did because he wore the crown. But Herat is graced. But he doesn't... He's the exact opposite of the Hierophant. The Hierophant thinks that the graceless should be better than everybody else, and he's trying to kill off the grace. But I think he's really doing it because he's a prophet. I really think he's doing it because he wants power. And so the more people with power you can kill off, the more you have. But Herat is like, I am graced. I'm special. He's like looking at Hassan and like, you aren't graced. And you call yourself a prince, but you're not even graced. Ew. And he like leaves Hassan out of strategy meetings. He's so manipulative and underhanded, and he just smiles in your face and stabs you in the back, and Kepri's falling for it, and I'm like, oh god, Kepri, I hate you. And at one point Hassan grows up hair, and he's like, no, you're going to do this. And Herat's like, why? And he was like, because I'm the fucking king, that's why. And he's like, oh, okay. He does kind of like do some more shenanigans, Herat does, but he also wants the crown. Once again, I think he thinks he deserves it. Not sure what he was going to do with it, but in the first book it said that the person who wore the crown, it destroyed them, and it destroyed Herat too, because he had to wear it because Anton needed people with grace to hold the relic to seal the gate, but it killed him. Hassan doesn't have power. He doesn't have grace, so he couldn't do it. He had to give it to Herat. But I liked Herat a lot. He was a very interesting character. I don't remember what happened with Kepri. I don't think she died, but her and Hassan like split. They split ways. But anyway, yeah, those are all the major characters. There are a couple of other things that I found interesting in this book. One of them is, and I can't believe I missed this the first time through, I did make comparisons to the Age of Darkness and Armageddon. But I also think that the four harbingers, Ephyra, Anton, Jude, and Hassan, I think they also they represent the four horsemen of the apocalypse, because those are also described as harbingers of death in the Bible. So basically this book has some biblical undertones. If you didn't catch that, you probably did catch it. Like it's pretty obvious. I mean, there are 7 prophets. 7 is also a very big number in the Bible. But the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, like one carries a sword, one carries a crown, one represents death. And in this book, Jude has a sword, Hassan has a crown, Ephyra is death. So I do think that she was going for that. Which, once again, critical reading. It's a critical book. And that's something that your book discussion or your buddy read can sit and discuss. You can sit and discuss how Katy Rose has incorporated biblical symbolism in her book. So I think that's pretty cool. What else is there? The very end, I don't know if I kind of went into the end of the book. Basically, they're all there. They have the 4 relics. They're trying to seal the gate. Anton is... Oh, I didn't get to it. I said I was going to go back to it. Anton is a prophet, and he has power. And he tried to seal the gate, but he wasn't powerful enough to do it. And so they needed so Beru, the God inhabited Beru and started destroying Bethesda, and they needed to stop her or stop God because he was going to destroy everything. I think he was really upset that the prophets killed him. I guess he would be. And they needed to control him, but Anton is not strong enough to do it. So they needed the Hierophant, because the Hierophant is a prophet. They needed his power to stop God. And he did. And what he did was he bound God in Beru. Beru can control God, but the Hierophant was like, if you don't want me to kill your sister, you're going to tell God what to do, and I need God to do my bidding. And she said, okay. She had to because she didn't want to kill her sister. And so that's why Ephyra and Beru and Ilya left with the Hierophant. Now, the Nameless Woman is also a prophet, but she can't be seen by the Hierophant, by Pallas, because he's going to use her for more power. Because she's a prophet, she has more power than anybody else. And so she has to stay hidden. She must have seen what was happening when they killed God and didn't like it and was just like, oh, I'm going to do something to stop that. So she kind of went against what they were doing. So the prophet, or the Hierophant, doesn't know that the Nameless Woman is back. The Wanderer prophet, she still doesn't have a name. She's called the Wanderer. I think there's more to her story. Also at the end of the book with Beru, when God is inside Beru, she approaches Jude, lifts his chin and says to him, "You should have been mine." What the hell was that? I don't know what that means. At first I thought maybe because Beru and Hector are connected, and so maybe that was Hector saying that, but I'm like, but it was speaking as God, not as Beru. So I don't know, maybe it's that, but is Jude more important than we've been led to believe so far? I don't know why God said that to Jude. I thought that was really odd. And also at the end of the book, there is a big earthquake, and Jude and Hector is on one side of the line, on one side of the break, and Hassan and Anton on the other. And so throughout the whole book, Anton has basically been telling Jude, you need to protect me. I need you to protect me. He's very vulnerable, which is very unusual for a male character in any book to show any kind of vulnerability or weakness. And Jude's whole job is to protect him, but now they're on opposite sides of this crack in the earth, and they just kind of go their separate ways. And I'm like, oh no, they're separated now. What the hell is going to happen now? I'm pretty sure she's not going to hook Jude and Hector up again, because I think Hector and Beru are destined to be together, and Jude and Anton are destined to be together. But what is Anton going to do now? He has to learn how to defend himself. He can't rely on other people to do it for him. He needs to grow a pair now. It's time to put on your big boy pants. So that ending of that was pretty interesting. I like how she ends her books, because everybody is off on their own journey. And so now everybody, once again, is off on their own journey. And so, I don't know. I like how the book ended. Am I missing anything? I had so many notes. I have lost my voice. I don't think so. I think I picked out everything that I wanted to. Hopefully I got all of that correct. Future Dawn, when you were listening to this, and all the other people that might be confused when they are reading the book as I was. Anyway, I really like the series. For Katy Rose to be a debut author, this is quite an ambitious book, and good on her for putting together this very unique world she has. I hope that people, well, if you're listening to this, you've read it, so I hope you're enjoying it as much as I have. If I said anything wrong, or if you found a different theory or something, please mention it somewhere. You can follow the Novel Universe on Instagram, or I am Bang Bang Books everywhere, on Twitter, on Goodreads, Facebook. Well, no, not Facebook, but Instagram. I'm on Instagram too, and Goodreads, and something else. It's like 10:30 at night. I'm tired. So thank you for joining me, and I'll catch you this weekend when we podcast The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes.